Yesterday I found out that my brother found my YouTube channel. Yo, I think it's time for me to quit, I'm not gonna lie. Hey homies, so I did a review of the first season of Never Have I Ever a couple of weeks ago, just before the second season came out. Second season is out now. I finished the season as fast as I could. I'm not gonna lie, this show really isn't my cup of tea, and I think that's really because I'm not the age group that the show is targeted towards. But nonetheless, I give it a shot, and I will say that the second season is a lot better than the first season in my opinion. I feel like it was definitely a lot less problematic. It wasn't out of pocket in the way that the first season was in many instances. I'm not a hater, but the show still is a meh, in my opinion. It's not really giving, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, let's just get into my little review of the season. So of course, I'm gonna be spoiling the plot. So if you haven't watched the show already and you plan on watching it, go do that and then come back. Let's just review really quickly what went down in season 2. So the show starts off with Devi finding out that both Ben and Paxton like her, and she likes them both. So she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know who to pick. And she decides, being the intelligent young woman that she is, that she's gonna date them both at the same time. And obviously sooner than later they find out that they're being two-timed by her, and the both of them are angry, and now she has no boyfriend. Mind you, they both found out because they went to a party that Devi was hosting at her house while her mom was away in India. And when they found out that they were being played by Devi, Paxton runs out of the house and Devi follows him, and he just gets hit by a car. Like, it wasn't even the type of situation where he just runs out of nowhere and the car doesn't see him coming and boom. It was literally like he's standing in the middle of the street yelling, arms flailing and everything, and the car just... I was like, I don't know where y'all live, but clearly the drivers are worse than they are in Toronto. So now that Paxton is injured, he can't swim anymore, and that was his ticket into college. And so for payback, he makes Davey do his homework for a little bit so that he can get better grades. But then his sister makes him feel bad for cheating his way into getting better grades, so he ends up actually just getting tutored by Davey. Ben is obviously still hurt. He's kind of been left to the curb until a new student comes into the school, and her name is Aneesa. Aneesa is another fellow Indian, and Davey gets assigned to showing her around the school and making sure that she gets comfortable with her new environment. And Devi is immediately intimidated by Aneesa because she's so well liked by everybody. She has such a great aura, people love her. But she starts to warm up to her, finding out that being friends with another Indian person actually does bring a lot of familiarity, and she recognizes that Aneesa is a great friend. But as soon as she sees Aneesa and Ben hitting it off, she just flips her shit, and she blurts out for no reason to two of the biggest gossipers in the school that Aneesa allegedly has anorexia. And these two girls spread the word around, and boom, next thing you know, the whole school thinks that Aneesa is anorexic. When Aneesa finds out that Devi made up this rumor, obviously their friendship falls apart. And the worst part is Aneesa actually is anorexic, and that's why she left her last school, because people were gossiping about her. And now in her new school, everyone is doing the same thing all over again. Through this situation, Devi has to learn how to actually give a genuine apology, so we see some character development in her. And eventually she apologizes to Aneesa. They're friends again. At the same time, Aneesa is dating Ben. And then near the end of the season, Paxton tells Devi that he does want to be with her, but that he doesn't want to be in a public relationship with her because he doesn't want to look a fool after everyone found out that he was getting cheated on by her anyways. But eventually Devi's like, I can't do a secret relationship. I need you to actually be a boyfriend to me if you're gonna be with me. And at first he's like, yeah, I can't be that for you. But at the school dance, he comes running back to her, telling her that he's willing to be her boyfriend, and you know, an actual legit boyfriend. And boom, the season ends with Paxton and Devi getting together. Ben is with Aneesa, but you know, you can tell that he's not really feeling Aneesa like that because she's not exactly who Devi was, and he kind of wants Devi back. But that's generically what happened in the entire season. So really quick, let's talk about Devi. Devi's character definitely had a lot of character development in this season, which I personally like, because in the last season she was just annoying the entire way, whereas in this one we actually seen her trying to better herself as a person, and that actually gave her character some flavor. The best dialogue in the entire season was definitely her conversation with her therapist that she had after finding out that her mom was sort of kind of moving on from her relationship with her dad after his passing. She's emotional because she doesn't have Ben, she doesn't have Paxton, now she's seeing her mom with another man. And her therapist says something to her along the lines of, you feel a lot, Devi, you're an emotional person, and that means you're going to get hurt a lot, but that also means you're going to have a very emotionally rich life. And that line was just so so fire, and I personally needed to hear that. I definitely am a very emotional person. I always have been, and sometimes I hate myself for it because I'm like, you're feeling a lot right now and it looks like nobody else is feeling as much as you are. But that was just a reminder that being in tune with your emotions is not something to be ashamed of, because you actually do live a much more enriched life if you understand what you're feeling and if you embrace that. Really quickly, I forgot about this, but I really do want to mention it. I could tell that in this season they were trying to make up for a lot of the problems that people were pointing out about the first season, the stuff that was actually offensive to people. Like in Devi's therapy session with her therapist, she says, "Why did that happen to me?" And she's talking about the paralysis in her legs. She says, in the medical field, we call this psychosomatic distress. And I searched that up, and psychosomatic distress or illness is just basically where you have some type of physical pain that doesn't really have a medical explanation to it, but it doesn't go as extreme as being paralyzed to the point where you literally can't walk. When I was reading about it, the examples were sort of like having pain in the neck or in the lower back, and like there's no actual medical reasoning for why that might be, but the reasons could be due to like stress in your life, or it could even be from like trauma in the past. But again, it doesn't go as severe as like being paralyzed in the leg. So that was like a really cheap explanation to that whole random plot line that they added in the first season. So yeah, I could tell that they were trying to make up for some of the nonsense from the first season, but like forget even explaining yourself, just don't do it twice, you know what I mean? Like don't make Islamophobic jokes, don't make dumbass plot lines like the girl gets paralyzed for no reasons. That shit was unnecessary. Let's just lesson learned and move on. Okay, so let's talk about Aneesa. Aneesa is the cool Indian new girl who comes to Sherman Oaks. And right from the beginning, the writers had to let us know that she was Muslim. And this was so funny to me because I'm almost 100% sure that she was a tool to make up for the Islamophobic jokes that came out of the first season. Like as soon as she comes onto set, as soon as she's introduced to us, we have to find out that she's Muslim, and it happens in the most like unrealistic way ever. Her teacher's like, "Hi everyone, this is the new kid Aneesa," and she's like, and he's like, "Aneesa, is that an Arabic name?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm Muslim." And I was like, no one does this. This has never happened, not once in real life. Like nobody does this. No, literally this would never happen. Nobody comes up to the front of the class and says like, "My name is Arabic because I'm Muslim." Information nobody asks for, nobody cares. I did really like Aneesa's character in the beginning because she is so laid back. She's very chill. She's very proud to be Muslim. You know, she mentions it out loud a few times and she never seems to hide her Muslim identity. So I will appreciate that. But she definitely got annoying to me when she started dating Ben, because at that point I was like, oh, everyone in this show is just so immature. She becomes aware that Ben and Devi used to date, and before she dates Ben, you know, she asks Devi if like she's comfortable, if she's okay with it. And like of course Devi's gonna say yeah, because I mean she can't really stop them from being together. So Devi gives her blessings and they start dating, but they're the type of couple that like cannot be individuals anytime they're next to each other. And I just thought like Aneesa was definitely being disrespectful when she was all up on Ben in front of Devi. Like in that one episode where they're working together on a group project for their law class, and her and Ben are like constantly making jokes with each other, laughing, giggling, hugging, kissing even right in front of Devi. I'm like, hey, y'all don't know nothing about having etiquette. Like, what is this? What is this? I get it, they're 15, but oh my god, couples who cannot behave when they're in front and around other people are just so irritating. Like what? For Aneesa to know that Devi and Ben have history, but like make it very much in Devi's face that they're together, I was like, ugh. I was really feeling you, Aneesa, but it's a no for me now. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Aneesa's eating disorder. I personally thought the eating disorder plotline was really out of nowhere, I guess, is the best way to put it. Before Devi has that random outburst and just yells out loud that Aneesa has anorexia, we never see Aneesa ever have any trouble with food. Literally in that episode we see her eating a hot dog with Ben, and I've never had an eating disorder, so I don't want to speak on what that experience must be like, but Aneesa does explain that, you know, she was known to be skinny in her old school, so she started to only identify as a skinny girl and just kept pushing herself to be skinnier and skinnier. But there's no like build up or any hinting towards the fact that Aneesa might have an eating disorder. I feel like before Devi just blurs out that information and we find out that it actually happens to be true, there should have been some foreshadowing of this piece of information. Like, I feel like if we had little clips of like Aneesa being uncomfortable around food, or Aneesa like declining eating when she's being offered food, would have made more sense, and we would have been like, ah, so that's why she was behaving in such a way, instead of it just coming out of nowhere to add to the plot and to cause chaos in the storyline. If we had some foreshadowing when we do find out that Aneesa is anorexic, it would have been like an aha moment, you know what I mean, rather than a oh. Finally, let's talk about Paxton, Eleanor, and Fabiola. I love that each of these characters actually got more screen time in this season, got to know them more as individuals, and they each had their own storylines that were explored a lot more. The episode where Gigi Hadid is narrating Paxton's story was really cool in my opinion. I love that they brought Gigi Hadid into the show. I think the only correlation between her and Paxton, like she says, is that they're very attractive people, but they're also only seen for being attractive people and not as actual individuals with more layers to them. It was nice to understand Paxton's character a lot more. We also got to learn more about his Japanese roots, which was cool because, you know, he is half Japanese, and a lot of like celebration of white men in this show. So it's nice to finally have Paxton, who is half Japanese, explore that, and as an audience be able to learn that with him. Let me just say one thing about Paxton. It is so freaking obvious that the guy who plays Paxton is a grown ass man, and it's a thought that I just can't get out of my head, because I look at all the other actors and then I see Paxton and I'm like, oh lord, they really could have casted anybody, but they casted him. Don't get me wrong, the actor is great, he does a great job of playing the character, but it's very clear that he's not a high school student or even close whatsoever. So it was really creepy to watch all the scenes between him and Devi where they're kissing and they're hooking up, because I'm like, wait a damn minute. Also, that one episode where he like sneaks up to her bedroom window, I think they do have sex, was so corny and gross. This was my literal reaction when I saw that. Oh my god, this show is so disgusting. Let it be known, I don't ship anybody in this show except for Fabiola and her girlfriend. Like, they're cute, but otherwise I think Eleanor and Fabiola also have stories that some people can relate to, such as Eleanor is obsessed with her boyfriend and kind of lets him take over and manipulate her to the point where she starts acting out in ways that she never has before, being rude to her friends and her stepmom, until she finally realizes that this man literally ain't shit. Like, he's just been using you to his benefit, and being able to accept that and learn from that and move on. And Fabiola also has identity issues with herself, because she finally has come out a lesbian, but to fit in with her girlfriend and her girlfriend's friends, she feels like she has to be a little bit different. She has a little bit of an identity crisis with exploring her own queerness and also her own individuality and how she fits into the queer community. Nalini's story is also very interesting in my opinion. I think her story was definitely one that a more adult audience could relate to or feel for. You know, she's feeling very lonely. She's mourning her husband, and she goes to India to get the support of her family and hopefully feel a little less alone, but she realizes that no one back home is honestly going to be there for her in the way that she hoped, except for her mother-in-law. So she comes back with her mother-in-law and she tries to navigate that grief, and she does end up having a little bit of a thing with her co-worker, who, just like Ben and Devi, they were arch nemesises. They were enemies at first, and then they end up catching feelings. But then she realizes that she hasn't really moved on from the loss of her husband, and she still needs more time. And I really liked seeing more layers to Nalini's character, because up until this point she was just an angry Indian mother who placed a lot of expectations on her daughter. What I will say though, and one of my subscribers actually pointed this out to me, Nalini's character definitely has a lot of patterns in her behavior that are very toxic when it comes to parenting, and it's something that a lot of us South Asian kids are actually very used to. Like, we're used to having these unrealistic expectations by our parents that we're always trying to live up to. We're used to being scolded constantly just for making mistakes in our teenage years. We're used to being taught very traditional values, very misogynistic values as well. And in the show, it's played off as like the funny Indian angry mother, but honestly, what would have been so much more meaningful would have been if that was challenged in the show. I know the show is not going to be an outlet to challenging every single problem that's within the South Asian community, but I think it really would have been a lot more meaningful and interesting if we saw Nalini's behavior being challenged either by her mother-in-law or by Devi herself, instead of Devi and her just constantly arguing all the time and butting heads. Nalini is also not exactly the most like Indian mother, you know. It definitely feels very whitewashed, so we might as well challenge what we deem as normal, you know what I mean? But I will say Devi and her mom having that love-hate relationship is my favorite part of the show, because I feel like it's the most real part of the show. But I really do feel like the show is its best when we see Devi and her mom having conversations about their own trauma, about their own disagreement and inability to see one another. That's genuinely the most authentic and well-written part of the show. Now moving on to Kamala. Kamala's story is also very relatable. You know, she's struggling to get the respect of her co-workers because she's the only woman at the lab, also the only woman of color, and she's extremely beautiful. You know, pretty privilege really is a thing. It allows for a lot of people to be in certain spaces and places and get certain opportunities because they're so attractive that a lot of average people either don't get or have to work that much harder to get. But being pretty also works backwards for a lot of people, where it's like in certain spaces people can't take you seriously because all they see is someone who's attractive, and people can't seem to take attractive people seriously or believe that they could be more than just attractive, that they can actually contribute valid ideas and thoughts. And I really respect that Kamala's character actually does fight back when one of her co-workers steals her work and tries to send off a journal without including her in the credentials, and speaks up for herself even though her boyfriend himself advised her not to. Like, she actually takes a stand for herself and lets it be known that the work that she does is her own, and she's gonna make sure that people know that she's more than just a beautiful woman. She's also a very intelligent woman. But I'm still not Kamala's biggest fan because of what she did to her ex-boyfriend, you know, the Asian boy. I feel bad for him to this day, but it's whatever. Finally, the best character on the show, hands down to me, is Mohan. Like, he's not even really in the show like that, but every time he is mentioned or we get flashbacks of him, I genuinely get so emotional. You can tell that he was an amazing husband and an amazing father, and once he passed away, it definitely was a really big change in both Nalini and Devi's life, both in the sense of how they're being taken care of, but also emotionally, the loss of such an important man in both of their lives. He comes off as a very wise and caring man, and I miss him too. I'm not gonna lie, I miss him too. Anyways, you guys, that was my thoughts on season 2. I'm not gonna lie, you know, the show isn't one that stands out to me or is my favorite. I know in season 1 I expressed a lot of my disappointments in the show, and you know, season 2 there aren't many problems with the show. You know, I'm not really complaining as much as I did for the first season. There's like 1,500 things happening outside in my bedroom. But what I will say is that for anybody who's looking for shows which give representation to South Asian people, I want you to know that this show is not the only one. As much as representation for us is very limited, there are other shows out there other than this one that you can watch that are very enjoyable and super well written and funny. There's Rami, there's Little Mosque on the Prairie, and I will list a couple other in the description box below that you guys can check out. The thing is that because Mindy Kaling has such a big presence in the Hollywood industry, when she came out with the show, it definitely got a lot of clout and a lot of attention, which is why everybody looks at this show for South Asian representation. But it really isn't the only show that's gonna give you good South Asian representation. So like I said, if you are interested in more shows with South Asian representation, check out the shows that I mentioned in the description box below, and in the comments down below if you also know a show or a film that has great South Asian representation, or just representation of Muslim people or any minority group of people. Please feel free to leave it in the comments so that the rest of us can check it out. And yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here, y'all. I'm actually going out in a little bit with some friends, which is why I look so dressed up. This doesn't happen often. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to leave a comment down below on your thoughts of the show. If you have not subscribed already, what is you doing, bruv? Get to it. And I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Bye.